So hello, today I'm at St Michael and All Angels Church in Roxwell in Essex, and I'd like to talk to you about the village and the church itself. So Roxwell is located 4 miles from Chelmsford in Essex. The population is around 1,000. The village is set in a rural setting, built around the church here. The elevation of this village is about 40 metres. The River Cam does go through the area. Just to point this out, this is a church window, or the stonework, that's been incorporated into the church wall. Now, Roxwell does go back to the Roman period. Let me set the camera up on the wall here. So the Romans were here. A statue 6.5 centimetres high was found in Roxwell, and it showed a British archer, and it was an example of Britannicus. Chelmsford Museum ended up purchasing the statue, and it's there now. Now Roxwell, I found out, has got 5 houses which are moated within 1 mile of this church. So it shows the defensive positions from possibly the Saxon times to the medieval period that were built into this area. Now during the Saxon period, Writtle was the largest settlement in Essex, and it included Roxwell, and it had a circumference of 52 miles. Now Harold Godwinson owned Roxwell Manor. Godwin was a deacon here, and Sabine was a priest. So it's highly likely that Writtle had a chapel of some sort here. Now in 1086, Newlander Manor was owned by Eustace, who was Earl of Boulogne. And the manor actually became known as Newland Hall, and it's still in existence. Its name comes from newly won land, and this was obviously from Eustace of Boulogne. Now in 1204, King John, he owned a palace in nearby Writtle and a hunting lodge, and he basically gave the Church of All Saints in Writtle and Roxwell to the Hospital of the Holy Ghost in Rome. This was also known as St Mary's. Now between 1300 and 1391, St Michael's Chapel was built here, and at the end of that period, both churches from Writtle and Roxwell were once again handed over to outside parties. This time it was the Bishop of Winchester, and he in turn gave it to New College, Oxford, as it's now known. Now in 1554, Queen Mary, the Crown, owned Roxwell, and they transferred it over to Sir William Peter. Now Sir William also owned Writtle Manor, so he was a powerful landowner here. Now Sir William was also Secretary of State, to give you the idea of his role in society, and he held office during the reigns of Henry VIII, Edward VI, Mary I and Elizabeth I. Now if you look at the church now, it's undergoing extensive renovations. You can see that the roof's been replaced. Now if we go forward some years, we've got Sir John Ramsden, and the elder, and he was born in 1577, and he brought Screens Manor in Roxwell, and his descendants lived here for 200 years. Now, Sir John was appointed Lord Chief Justice, so another powerful character. We go to another guy called Francis Quarries, and he was born in 1592 in Romford, in the manor there, and he wrote the religious poetry and lived in Roxwell along with his wife and 18 children. Yep, you heard it right, 18. And they were all baptised right here in this church. Now, King Charles Stuart loved to read Quarry's works, and in 1633 his greatest poems were printed in the book titled The Emblems. Now, it's said that King James himself stayed in Hoe Street farmhouse right here in 1606. Over the centuries, we have several residents that were unlucky enough to be executed. One was Robert Bishop, and he was committed a felony. We've got a Michael Cox and a Thomas Sweetine. They were convicted of counterfeiting money. Now, Roxwell itself was it became a separate parish to Writtle in 1851. So let's move on to the church itself. So what you can see in front of us is the north aisle and north porch. Now, these are modern in construction, but the rest of the church is more or less 14th century. So we're going to go in through the north door. It's built with flint rubble and the dressings of clunch, and it was the whole church was heavily restored during the 19th century. Lovely. You can see it's all done nicely. Yeah, so we're going to open these double doors. We'll leave these open for a bit of light to enter the church. Yeah. So we're entering the modern north aisle. I'm going to flick this light on here just to illuminate it a bit. I found this very interesting, this board, which it looks like it's remembering those who've no longer with us from this area. It carries on up there. That was quite nice. It's Jesus and the Last Supper in a stone carving. And this church has got some fantastic windows, I must say. Detail's great. We've got the memorial there for the Great War. And on this one, memorial for the Second World War. Now we're going to move on to the north aisle, the nave. Now the nave is 14th century and it is 59 feet by 24.5 feet in dimension. This church, from what I can see, is very active. As small as the village is, the community is very strong. They have had a lot of fundraising events for this church, which is nice to see. They're pulling together and getting some much needed renovation done. And as you walk through, you can see, I'll show you some of these windows. Yeah, beautiful. I've got a soft touch for stained glass windows. Just pick the cushions up. Right, okay. So we're now facing the chancel. It's also 14th century and it's 27 by 21 feet. And the roof is crossed braced collar beams. The bell turret, which will be up this end and the west end, which you can't see. It's weatherboarded. It's got spire. It's a modern bell turret, but it stands on these 15th century collars or beams, posts coming down. There's 3 bells, and they're by John Waylett, who's quite famous in 1707, and John Clark of 1621. So now we'll just look around. So you've got a lovely stone. I'll put my light on, you can see the detail of that. We best put the light off, I think. And you can just imagine the family with 18 children coming into this church. We've got actually we'll put these lights on. You can see the grandeur. There, look at that. Isn't that stunning? Makes so much difference. And you can see the large floor slab here. So I looked at the date, 1597. And this was a gent of Thomas Young, or Yoving, and he was connected to Newland and Roxwell. So that manor there. And again, we have some fantastic memorials, quite large actually in stone. Such detail. Another fine window. And there'll be a seat, I guess, for the priest to sit. And then we have the reredos, to go a bit closer, and the high altar. And you can see some lovely carvings on the top there. It looks like there's a bishop on this corner. Great detail. And what I liked was this detail here, which is still in place, which is the handle. Now I guess this is obviously predates the electricity side of things, and you could pump the bellows. So somebody would be putting some fair amount of effort in, keeping the organ going. Yeah, you can see the lights there. Fantastic. You can see the wear on the bench. It's great. And when I see the handle like that, I can just imagine that the guy that'll be working that through the service would be off to the pub maybe for an hour after, perhaps, for a well-earned rest. So I'm just going to finish up by looking at these windows. Again, such quality. Now this is in loving memory of Charles and Lenny Turnbull's 1975, so it's a fairly recent window, isn't it? But still, it's got such quality. I particularly like these memorials that are made in sort of gold tiles. And another lovely window. So, I'd just like to finish off by saying what the community's been doing for this church. They've left out a book here. And it goes into detail about all the events that they've carried out here. A classic car event, and it gives the money raised. Raise the roof dinner. Isn't it fantastic what people do? And there's a meeting there with the architect from Historic England. And you can see a large congregation there. So it's a very busy church by the looks of it. And it goes on, it's fantastic. And then it goes through the sad period of lockdown where everything's shut down. And then we carry on again. We've got Santa's visit, so we've just gone through Christmas. And we're in February. And the event that's just gone from the Church, the All Saints in Roxwell, which is a film preview. And yeah, it's great. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much.